Hello everyone, I'm Rachael-Grace with a Bloomin' Witch. Welcome back to our weekday, midday Yin Yoga practice. Tonight's practice is Yin/restorative based. So if you are planning to join me for practice this evening, I would recommend grabbing some props, such as a yoga bolster, maybe a couple of blankets you can fold up and stack or roll up. If you have yoga blocks, to have those readily available. And a good substitute for yoga blocks would be to grab a stack of books and then perhaps a blanket over top to help add a little bit of cushion to the blocks or the books. Make sure you grab your yoga mat, have some water nearby if you need it. And then I would also recommend, if you like to practice with music, to put on something sort of relaxing and grounding, putting that on in the background. And then just a few things that are important to keep in mind with any movement practice, but specifically related to Yin. When we come into our Yin postures, we are holding these poses for a bit of time, for a few minutes at a time, generally speaking. So it is really important that you're really paying attention to the level of sensation you're experiencing in your body. So if anything feels sharp or stabbing, burning sensations, numbness, tingling, I would do my best to avoid those sensations. So if you're experiencing any of those, that is your body's way of letting you know that you probably ought to be backing out of the pose or perhaps not coming into the pose altogether. So ideally, the level of sensation we should feel is mild to moderate and should feel like a dull ache. So you might be uncomfortable at times. However, the posture and sensation you are experiencing should feel tolerable and sustainable and certainly safe. So we're coming into these poses for time, we're holding still, and we're looking for mild to moderate sensation. So those are sort of the key kind of foundations for coming into a Yin practice. So it is entirely up to you to decide kind of how intense you want to take the sensation in the body. You know, if you want to lean in deeper towards a pose or start to ease your way out of a pose. So again, that is really up to whatever your needs are for today's practice. There may be certain poses that just don't feel accessible to you at the moment, or maybe just don't feel in alignment with what your body needs. So feel free to modify within that pose, or if there's another pose that you'd rather go into altogether, this is your practice. So of course that's welcome. Again, as long as you're practicing in a way that is safe for you. So we're focusing this evening on compassion and empathy. We talked about this, or I talked about this earlier today during our Daily Bloom midday talk. So we're going to keep that theme sort of weaving through tonight's Yin practice. And it's a good one for helping ourselves learn how to slow down and kind of recognize and be present in our bodies. And when we are present, we'll often have an easier time accessing things such as compassion or empathy. Being present keeps us here and now rather than focusing on, worrying about the future or having anxiety about something that happened in the past. So we'll practice some grounding techniques within the poses as well. So hopefully you'll find them useful. So like I said, you're welcome to grab whatever you need for practice this evening. Blocks, blankets, yoga bolster, yoga blocks, whatever you have handy. And let's make our way to our yoga mats. So you may see me looking at my phone every now and then. That's because I have a timer going. And I like to keep an eye on a timer just to make sure that we are spending equal time on both sides of the body to help us keep a sense of balance and equilibrium in the physical body. So for now, I am simply going to invite you to come to a comfortable seat We're not going to be here too long. Let's just take a few moments to really anchor in and get ourselves grounded. So easy seat, having the legs crossed. If there's a more comfortable seated position that you would prefer to be in, then go ahead and find that. But make sure that you can sit up nice and tall. So we want to try to avoid hunching and rounding and slouching over, and find a way to comfortably lift up through the crown of the head, but sort of keep relaxed through the belly so you don't have to, suck everything in. So just kind of move the shoulders out a little bit and then relax them down the back. Hands might like to rest on the knees or the thighs, palms up or down. And you're welcome to close your eyes. And start to notice your breath. Just noticing how the inhale fills your chest, fills your belly. And then your exhale will welcome a deeper sense of relaxation as the body contracts and softens. Feeling into your very natural rhythm of breathing. And we'll set an intention for practice today by repeating to ourselves, either out loud or in our minds, I am a compassionate and empathetic being. So as you repeat those words to yourself, just sort of envisioning and holding space of an open heart, allowing that compassion and empathy to plant a seed in your heart. And then perhaps imagining every breath that you take is nourishment for that seed to grow. Just 3 more breaths. Place your palms together at your heart center, thumbs gently pressing into your chest. And with another big inhale, start to lift both arms up. Bring your palms together, and then exhale, draw that energy back towards heart center. We inhale, lifting both arms all the way up. Exhale, hands draw to heart. And we inhale all the way up. And exhale, hands to heart. So really not doing much of a warm-up here, but for a moment, maybe just roll the shoulders or move the shoulders around. And then bringing right ear towards right shoulder, bringing chin towards chest, and then left ear towards left shoulder, and then take it in reverse. do side to side a couple more rounds. And then back to center. Let's begin in child's pose. So as you feel ready, go ahead and make your way onto your hands and knees. And for the purpose of yin, again, this is a more passive style of practice, so there is very little force applied in the body. You can choose whether you'd like to keep the knees wide and the toes slightly together, or perhaps bring the knees a little closer in. So whichever position you take for the knees, however much space happens to be there, start to relax your hips back towards your heels, and then slowly lower your forehead down towards the floor. Now, if you are not able to bring your forehead all the way down to the mat without causing stress or strain, I would recommend either grabbing a pillow, a bolster, or a yoga block. You can place that underneath your chest or your forehead for support. And we'll take one more breath. Slowly lifting ourselves up onto all fours. And we're going to get into an opening for the chest, the shoulders. I'm going to grab one more yoga block for myself. So if you have yoga blocks, go ahead and grab your two blocks. If you don't have blocks, again, you can use 2 stacks of books that are evenly tall, or I will show you an option not using any props at all. So if you are choosing to use blocks or books, you want to set up your blocks in front of you, a good shoulder distance apart. So the taller the blocks sit, the more intense you are likely to experience sensation across the shoulders, across the chest. So if that becomes a little too intense, you just take the blocks down another level. And there are 3 heights to the blocks, so you can use any of those. So using the blocks, we come onto our hands and knees. We lower down towards the elbows and the forearms. You can bring your palms together if you'd like. And then your head and chest begin to lower down towards the floor between the blocks. And from this space, you can place your hands or arms wherever you like. Sometimes I keep my palms together. Sometimes I like to cross my hands and rest them on the base of my neck. So for those of you who do not have blocks or books or anything like that set up, you may come into heart-melting pose. So it's similar to child's pose. However, you are keeping the hips elevated over tops of the knees. But similar to child's pose, you walk the hands out, you bring the forehead and the chest towards the floor. So there's an option with blocks and an option without blocks. And keep in mind, if anything starts to feel too intense, you can slowly just ease out of your pose and come to a comfortable seat and rest for a few moments. Let's take one more breath. And very slowly begin to press upwards. All right. right, so if you do have blocks in front of you, feel free to keep them there. I'm turning my blocks up so they are at the tallest level and transitioning into dragon pose. So I'll step my right foot forward into a lunge. And as this is a yin practice, traditionally we really like to make sure that the knee is vertically aligned over the heel. However, for the sake of yin, if the knee comes past the heel and as long as it feels safe to do so, then it's totally appropriate to keep the knee there. So again, only if it feels safe and is not causing any harm, injury, or pain in your body. And if the lunge does start to feel a little bit too intense, one of the things you can do is start to sort of shift the hips backward. So to bring a little more alignment, bringing those hips aligned kind of center between the feet, or I'm sorry, between the front foot and the back knee. So the hips can come forward quite a bit, or perhaps you sort of align over that back knee a little bit more. So you can always play around with it as you're settling in and kind of guide yourself into wherever that sweet spot is for you. So we're not going to be here the full 3 minutes. Let's take another breath or two. And we transition into one of two options. A half split, which is not necessarily a traditional yin pose, but we can apply the same principles here. So you might walk the blocks back and stretch out through the front leg and hold there, or half saddle pose. So you're coming all the way to a seat with your left heel tucked in towards your left hip, and that right leg still extended out in front of you. So if you are able to come fully into the seat, you also have the option to add a forward fold here if you like. And you could do the same in half split as well. So in half split, the hips are up off the mat, and then you could always add that forward fold. And let's take one more breath. If you have those blocks handy and you're using those blocks, you might place them sort of back by the hips, press the hands down, and then shift yourself back into your lunge or dragon pose. And then allow the right knee to slide back towards tabletop. And we'll take it to the other side. This time our left foot will step forward. And obviously if you started with the left, then you would do the opposite leg. So setting up your dragon pose appropriately for this side of your body. Deciding where your hips are in relationship to the front foot or the back knee. And anytime we're simply holding still and holding space, it's a good time to reflect on our intentions or what it is we are cultivating through practice. So if today's intention or cultivation is around empathy and compassion, then reflecting on ways that you can apply those to your current state within your practice. So maybe you have a tendency to be just really hard on yourself or not being where you think you should be. So we'll take one more breath here. And slowly we transition towards half split. So if we've got those blocks under hand, we can walk the blocks back and have our left leg extended straight out in front of us. And perhaps maybe add a bit of a forward fold here. The other option is to allow the hips to drop all the way to the floor for a half saddle. So the right knee is bent with the heel tucked in towards our hip. And then the option from there to add a forward fold. So this might be one of those opportunities where you know you've been practicing for a while and maybe your body's not physically responding the way you think it should be, and you start kind of getting on yourself for maybe not practicing more. Perhaps you've had a challenging day and you start judging yourself for not being able to be still and be present, and so you kind of start that negative self-talk. So if you notice any of those patterns happening, this is a good opportunity to replace those thoughts with a space of compassion. To remember that you're human and imperfect. One more breath. I'm going to grab hold of my blocks, use a little bit of support as I move myself back towards dragon pose, and then slide my left knee back towards tabletop. And moving on to my belly and chest for Sphinx. So as I set up in Sphinx, what I'll often see is people will confuse this pose with Cobra pose. So in Cobra, our hands are back, kind of in line with the sides of our ribs. And in Sphinx pose, our elbows slide forward so that we have the support of our forearms and our elbows are stacked underneath our shoulders. Now, if I'd like to make this a more restorative option, what I could do is place a block in front of me and then release my forehead down on my block. So you can decide whether you'd like the more yin option or the more restorative option. And again, just being present with breath and body. For anyone interested in sort of bringing more energy into the spine here, we can add on for seal by pressing our palms firmly into the mat, feeling our elbows lift off the mat, and then deciding if we'd like to keep the arms and hands where they are, maybe walk the hands a little closer to the body. You will likely feel much more compression in the lumbar or the lower back, so if it's too intense, you can walk the hands out a couple of inches or simply take yourself back down onto your elbows. So again, sometimes the sensation is uncomfortable, but it's tolerable. It feels sustainable to be there for a while. However, if it feels painful, such as sharp stabbing, burning, if you have numbness or tingling, those are sensations I would prefer you try and avoid. So easing out of the pose slowly and carefully, same way we come into the pose, just as mindfully. And let's take one more breath. If you are on the hands with the elbows lifted, go ahead and lower your elbows back to the floor. And then just for a few moments, you can stack your arms in front of you and allow your head to rest. And slowly let's begin to press ourselves up towards a seat. And from our seat, we'll have our knees side by side, and then we'll take both feet, kind of lean into the right hip and take both feet over to the left side. So the knees might be stacked. I like to open my knees a little bit, sometimes a lot. And we're moving ourselves towards a twist. So if you know you have a difficult time kind of guiding yourself down towards the mat, you might grab a couple of yoga blocks. Maybe you have a pillow you can set down so that you have some support for your torso to rest on or your head to rest on as we come into this twist. So again, feet are to the left, our upper body is rotating towards the right. My hands can rest on the floor, and I might choose to hold here. If I'm interested in holding this for, a couple of minutes, I can stay here. A more restful variation sometimes can be to walk the arms out. Perhaps you rest on the forearms, maybe the head comes towards the floor. And if I want to sort of change the way that I experience the sensation in this pose, I can take my top leg, my back leg, and then draw my knee further away from my right foot. So you can play with kind of the position of this top back leg here. And we'll take another breath. And again, easing our way up and out of our pose, slowly moving out of our twist. Bringing both feet out in front of us. And then we take it to the other side. So we lean into the left hip, swing the feet over to the right, adjusting the position of our feet and knees in relationship to each other. And then as you're ready, the upper body rotates towards the left, deciding whether we'd like to stay up on the hands or perhaps lower down towards the mat. And we take one more breath. And let's begin to rise up away from the mat. And gently transition out of our twist, taking both legs out in front of us. And it might feel nice here to rock the knees side to side for a few moments. And then slowly guiding yourself down onto your back before we settle fully into our final resting pose. Let's hug the knees towards the chest. Maybe rock it out a little. And then make some small knee circles here. And then take those circles in reverse. And once you feel complete, extending both legs out in front of you, arms by your sides. However, if you'd rather finish in a comfortable seated meditation, then please find your way to a comfortable seat. You can use any props that you'd like to support you here. And you're welcome to close your eyes gently. Take another deep breath. And just feel back into that heart center. Feel back into that space of what it feels like to embody empathy and compassion. Getting fully present in this moment. So welcoming yourself back to this space, this moment, your next breath. Moving fingers and toes, your head. And if you are lying down, feel free to roll to your side for a moment. And then as you feel ready, guide yourself up towards a comfortable seat. We'll bring palms together at heart center in Anjali Mudra to seal the energy of our practice. And we'll take another inhale together. And exhale all the way out. And let's bow our head to our heart in gratitude for this practice of holding space for empathy and compassion. May we all know love. May we all know peace. May we all know kindness. And may these things always flow to and from us. Namaste. So thank you everyone so much. If you are watching this on the replay, then I hope you have a really good practice. There is a link if you'd like to make a donation towards today's class up in the post itself for this video. I'll be back tomorrow with more free flower card readings at noon, so you can join me there. And then again for yoga Friday evening at 5:30 for all level practice. So thank you all so much, and I will see you soon.